What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some patch highlights for Crimson Desert, as its latest patch, patch 1.04, introduced a bunch of changes that directly, I would say, addressed a few of the concerns I had in my own review, and so honestly it only felt fair that I cover some of these, even though that they are not necessarily, I would say, earth-shattering changes. However, before we dive into all that, I do think it's important to mention that you may want to wait for them to hotfix this, because this patch did introduce more than a couple problems, let's say. For starters, people are having issues using any of their mounts alongside a host of other smaller issues, but, enough to be an issue, and so I would expect a hotfix to come with this pretty quickly. It seems that they are aware of the issue, but either way, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the actual patch and what we are here to talk about. So, not long after my review, they dropped an initial patch that included the ability to do things like fast travel easier, that is to say, while mounted and whatnot. They also introduced improvements for the two side characters, Damien and Unka, namely updating some of their base abilities to make them a little more comparable to Cliff, who is realistically the main character here. Now, patch 1.04 came out just yesterday from the time of this video, so 4/22, and introduced a number of features we've been waiting on for a minute, starting with the difficulty. So, initially the game just had one base difficulty. Now we have an easy, normal, hard system. Normal is what you have been experiencing. Really no changes there. If you choose to play on easy, you're going to take reduced damage alongside making it easier to parry and dodge, and bosses will even attempt to counterattack less, and that is on top of having less health, being less aggressive, and just generally slower as well. Hard is a little bit different in the sense that food has to actually finish the animation before you receive the effect. You get increased damage taken, increased health, aggressiveness, and speed of enemies. They make it even harder to dodge and even roll away from enemies as the iframes are reduced. Bosses will not only counterattack and stuff more often, but they also have extra combat patterns on hard mode as well. So should realistically provide people some different challenges there, I would imagine. And yet, one of the other changes I'm actually kind of glad to see here is a slightly smaller one. Namely, I would say, making the inventory a little more usable. They start that with basically giving you different kinds of chests and whatnot that can be placed with your housing system. There's a few different types, but the most important, to me anyway, seem to be the Sturdy Gatherables chest, which has 1,000 inventory slots, and any crafting or refinement material you put into that chest is then usable from anywhere you are. So not only does that stuff not have to take up your inventory space, but it is also readily usable. They also introduced, as I mentioned, a few similar things, like for instance there's a cooler and stuff that you can put ingredients into if you choose to. There is a collectibles chest which will let you store specific quest items and recipes you happen to be finding. There's a wardrobe item that you can place multiples of that will allow you to put in, of course, things like furniture, etc. And then if that wasn't enough for you, you can now also choose the type of house you want to use. Depending upon how much you have expanded your camp, that is to say, the literal expansions that you have triggered via that questline, you can have up to a compact, standard, spacious, or a special house you get in the late game that would be kind of a spoiler to tell you about. You can choose which of those you wind up actually using, so there's even more house-related stuff on top of that stuff. That's not the only change they made to inventory, however. There's a handful of other things that were useful there. For starters, some stuff that did not stack previously now will, like the regular abyss gears will now stack. Insects, fish, animals, and things that can be picked up and put in your inventory, they will also stack if you pick up a bunch of them, so that's certainly nice to see. They also introduced some changes to how pets and things work. In particular, they added birds as pets, so you'll be able to just have birds as pets now, and that'll be another animal you can interact with and increase your bond with in order to recruit them as pets. And it looks like that's going to be primarily done through an item that you are going to be given via a quest that allows you to put food on it, and then that will, draw in the birds and allow you to befriend them. They also added 5 new types of cats, which I would assume is just breed of cat. They also mentioned that you'll be able to change the names of your horses and the pets that you have as well now. I know a lot of people have been just collecting pets like crazy, so figured people would like that change. And there were also a number of other smaller changes as well, like the fact that after resting, your character will get back up much faster now, and just subtle little changes that I think are important. but not necessarily a highlight of a video like this. The main thing I wanted to talk about, truth be told, is in fact the control changes. Now, I want to start this section by saying that I still think they have some work to do here. Like, for instance, WASD are still hard-coded. Those are not things you can change. However, they, I would say, started shifting things in the right direction. Personally, I'm a big fan of just give me a fully customizable keybind situation. However, we have not arrived there yet, but some of these changes are pretty good. Like, for instance, instead of holding a key to pick things up now, it is possible to do that instantaneously, provided the key for doing so doesn't overlap with other things, and so you don't have to like hold in order to pick something up anymore. They also added a couple options for dodging or using a roll, that kind of thing. And they also expanded the range of the things you can change the key binding of. So again, this isn't everything, but you should have a few more options now. And with any luck, all that will make people feel a little more comfortable doing this stuff on PC in particular, though from what I understand, controller also had some awkward controls. So all in all, a great change. But believe it or not, we are not done quite yet, as they also made some important changes to combat and encounters as a whole. So across the board, they balance adjusted all of the bosses. In particular, bosses are no longer immune when they are performing their big, like, powerful combos. Like the main thing you would have to dodge out of the way for. Some bosses were immune while those were playing out, and now they should take damage while those occur. And while it's a little vague, they also mention that they just generally adjusted the attack pattern of individual bosses. But beyond that, they also made changes to like individual characters and how they play, which is probably worth a mention. Some of them got a couple extra skills, like our two side characters. Cliff got an increased attack speed for your force palm ability, alongside the ability to throw a weapon if you happen to be dual wielding. Everything else I want to mention is basically just quality of life stuff that I thought was worth a quick mention. There are new categories that will allow you to sort your inventory more quickly. Documents, equipment, food, materials, things like that. The sort setting for each of those tabs individually will be saved, and so even when you click through different versions of the game and bring that menu back up, it should stay that way as opposed to you having to set it every time. They also allow you to actually set the exact type of map marker you want to set instead of it just being auto-assigned. They put the cardinal directions on your mini-map, which is obviously helpful. And they even added a little bit of extra UI to shop menus to show you the things you currently have in your inventory as opposed to you just having to memorize it. So not exactly groundbreaking changes there at the end, but again, stuff that was, I think, important in its own way. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for this particular video. Like I said, there were just some updates in here that did address some of my own criticisms of the game in my review, and I wanted to give them their fair shout out here. As another quick reminder, I would still probably wait for a hotfix, as this particular patch did also introduce a couple of problems. But speaking for myself, they did put out a roadmap not all that long ago talking about some of the things that they had on their agenda and things that they plan on changing and addressing as the state of the game progresses post-launch. I'm still waiting on a couple of those things, and when they are finally done tinkering is when I will jump back in to finish my 100% on this. As it stands, I stepped away from that 100% when I only had about 6 achievements left, but I was getting into the stuff that was going to be very time consuming, and so I kind of just decided to call it until they got the game into the, I would say, approaching final state, let's say. So in one form or another, I will probably talk about this game again in the future, but for today, that is pretty much going to do it. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.